and welcome to another hour of Gate City Chronicle, the weekly magazine dedicated to the city of Nashua. I'm Kevin Avard, your host, and I have a special guest with me today, Rahel. And welcome aboard, Rahel.
Thank you.
Well, we have a kind of a kinship here between you and I because you are a singer-songwriter.
Right, correct.
And I claim to be.
I think you are as well.
Yeah. So today's going to be kind of candy for me because I love music and I love all kinds of music. And I'm interested to talk to you about your music.
Great. I'm glad because I don't often get to talk about it.
Okay. So you are from the Nashua area?
Yes, I am.
All right. How long have you been here?
Well, I've been in New Hampshire actually for 12 years now.
Okay. And where were you originally from?
I grew up in Massachusetts, not too far, Lexington.
Oh, that foreign country right across the border.
That foreign country across the border, yeah. And I spent 22 years in Israel.
Oh.
And so I kind of lived my youth in Massachusetts and my adult life in Israel, and now I'm here for the past 12 years and hoping to eventually, soon I hope to go back
interesting.
to Israel, yeah.
Back to Israel. So that's quite a difference of cultures. Massachusetts and New Hampshire are miles apart.
Yes,
and on many,
they are actually.
In many, many different ways. But can you tell us a little bit about Israel and the differences from going from Massachusetts and then going back to Israel? What were some of the things that
culturally and musically and all of that? Israel is a very exciting place. I always said never a dull moment. There was always something happening. There is always something happening in Israel. A lot of it is very good. And what you see and hear on the news is actually only one aspect of Israel and life in Israel. Actually, Israel is a vibrant, growing, flourishing, thriving country, culture. It's multicultural, it's multifaceted, it's innovative. There's so much creation, I say creation, but creativity going on in Israel, and it's very exciting. It was very exciting to be part of it. I grew up, as I said, in Massachusetts, and mostly I was just a young child growing up, and when I went to Israel, I was 21.
In Massachusetts, what were some of your musical influences? Well,
I started out learning piano with my mother. My mother was very much the first influence, musical influence. She tried to teach me piano, which I wasn't too thrilled about. I couldn't coordinate two hands.
Right.
And she sent me to music school, to the Launchie School of Music. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
Sure.
And it was a very good school. I learned piano there and solfege and recorder. And later I learned guitar. And guitar was the one that stuck with me.
Yeah.
And
what kind of music did you like when you were in Massachusetts?
I loved folk music. Well, Well, we lived in Ireland for a year, and that's where I was introduced to the Beatles, actually. When they were just coming out, it was 1963.
Interesting.
Just before they sort of made it big. So I was introduced to the Beatles in Ireland, sorry. But in Massachusetts, I was very much influenced by 60s folk. It was the 60s folk revival, Pete Seeger, Bob Dylan, Joan Baez, all of them. And the Boston-based people were sort of, I guess, New England people, James Taylor.
You can play the game. Yeah, I love that guy.
Yeah, and Tom Rush, who is in New Hampshire, I believe, now. And just a lot of the early, Peter, Paul, and Mary.
Yeah.
I loved anything with harmonies. Harmony singing is something I just absolutely love. But on the other hand, I was also influenced by the Irish. There's a lot of Irish music in Boston.
You think?
Yeah. I learned how to play the spoons in a local pub in Somerville, which a friend and I just went to just to learn the spoons and to hear the Irish music. I learned how to play the banjo a little bit. I had a folk singing friend who lived in a log cabin, taught me how to play the auto harp. And in college, I ran a folk club and brought in Boston-based singers. So there were a lot of local people like Mary McCaslin, who I loved for, she's not well known, but she played in open tunings, and so as a guitarist, that was really interesting to me.
Open tunings.
Open tunings, yeah, when you tune to a chord.
Right, like if you down to your E chord to a D
Yeah.
chord, right?
And she did a lot of different open tunings, like Joni Mitchell does that as well. So
I didn't know that.
yeah, and I was influenced a lot by sort of the 70s, after Woodstock. You know, I would say I'm a Woodstock child, even though I was a little too young to actually attend Woodstock. But the spring off what happened after Woodstock and all the music that happened then. So it sort of went from the 60s folk revival, which was really down-home stuff, old-timey country music, but, you know, bluegrass, stuff like that.
She liked the songs like, Amy, what you want to do, that type of thing?
That's sort of, was that Eagles? Something like that?
No,
like,
who are they?
Yeah.
I can see why you think you belong to me.
Right.
I forget
No,
who
I
does
was
that.
very obscure people. Jamie Brockett, I don't know if you heard him. Remember the wind and the rain. And Tom Rush was I Got the Urge for Going.
Yeah.
And James Taylor, of course, Paul Simon. These were people, I think, who spoke to me because, for two reasons. They were guitar players.
Right.
And I was more interested in instrumental work at the time. And I would sit in my room, you know, and just listen and try and figure out how those finger pickings were being played. How did they do those, you know? They were new sounds to us at the time. And then the harmony singing. So I loved Peter, Paul, and Mary because they had the guitar and the harmonies going on.
Right.
And I loved Crosby, Stills, and Nash.
Yeah, Our House.
Yeah,
that's,
just for the harmonies. And so I wasn't really into yet the rock and roll and the stuff that was growing, Led Zeppelin, things that came later. But it was really, really down-home folk, Appalachian music,
right.
Banjo music.
Moving from Massachusetts to Israel, they have I think of Israel, and my mind automatically has more of an Asian type of influence or Middle East type of influence with the
You'd
the
be
music.
surprised.
Well, that my conception would be, well, you know, the clarinet and
Right, you think of Jewish music,
yeah,
klezmer music or something like that.
Melancholy type of or upbeat melancholy, minor chords or something to that effect.
Right.
So when you moved over, was there a different type of influence in
Definitely.
Your music? Yeah.
Definitely. The first thing that really hit me in the music in Israel was the dissonance. Okay. They used a lot of diminished and augmented chords, if you know that. And the sound is sort of, here in America, we don't like those sounds. They're incongruous. They sort of hit us kind of like off. They sound like they're a little off.
Right.
And then you have the Arabic influence and the music, which is quarter tones and things like that, which is, it hits you and you go, whoa, here you'd think it was wrong. But there it was wonderful, it was lively, and it fit in just right. And so you have this influence not just of Middle Eastern, because Israel is an immigrant country, there's a lot of influx of people from all over the world. And there's Indian music, there's Moroccan music, there's British, there's Irish, there's American, there's people from New Zealand, there's Australian, there's Arabic countries coming in, Yemenite music, and there's just so much going on that my ears were just like going, whoa, you know, what is this? And what happens is it becomes a fusion of all of those cultures and all of those sounds, and so you don't get one kind of straight thing. You get this intermingling of cultures, and then it's reflected in the music.
Right.
So coming from Massachusetts, where it was sort of like bum bum, you know, very boom 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 boom, kind of in a in a 4/4 time and a basic beat, and very 3 chords, 4 chords kind of thing. To going, and you're right, there are a lot of minor chords and in what's typically maybe Eastern European Jewish music. But the rest of it is all over the map. It's jazz, it's folk, it's everything.
Well, as far as music, some people look at music and they just hear the notes and they hear the sound. There's also philosophies and the stories that you want to tell. So again, there's a story from Massachusetts, and there's got to be a story from Israel, and then there's got to be a story from New Hampshire.
Right.
And somehow you're putting all these together. These stories. Yeah.
If you would want to say, who am I would say that has been probably the main reason that I am not maybe in the mainstream or more popular, because my music is reflecting all of those influences that I've lived through. It's a little bit of everything. Mm-hmm. And so I find it really hard to label it or categorize it. I'm not a rock singer. I'm not a folk singer. I've sort of gone to folk. There used to be a category singer-songwriter, which would cover everything. Mm-hmm. But
when somebody brings up major influences, somebody will say something like, well, geez, Joan Baez, she was one of my main influences. I automatically come up with a picture in my head. Okay, earth tones, green, somewhat on the politically active side.
Right, activism.
Activism. Myself, I grew up with Ray Charles and Motown. And James Taylor, of course, and Carly Simon, Carole King, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And I was in this little later on 60s, but that picture's a persona with me. So when we say our influences, that's not necessarily our political influences in our music at all. I just want to dispel any type of, when somebody comes onto the sees the show, they'll say, well, she likes Joan Baez. Now they'll pigeonhole you,
right?
And that could be a mistake.
Yes. Right. As a musician, to tell you the truth, I was not interested that much in lyrics for a very long time, until I became I was kind of forced into being a solo singer much later on. But I was always a backup singer, harmony singer, and an instrumentalist. So much of my musical taste came from what did the music sound like? What was the beat? What was the rhythm? What were they doing on the guitar? What were the arrangements? What were the harmonies? So the people that I really emulated were, like I said, James Taylor, Paul Simon, because they gave me those wonderful guitar sounds.
They were very good. Or James Taylor still is good. They are very good. I've tried to learn a few of their songs, and every time I pick up a song from him, I go, oh, that's neat.
Yeah, you start trying to figure out what they're doing on the guitar, and it's very exciting. I later was influenced by jazz, because it was just a movement towards something new. Mm-hmm. And that became incorporated in my sounds. But lyrically or politically, the 60s was a very politically charged musical movement.
Right.
In many ways, the music sort of led the way.
Right.
They were the music was the spokesperson, so to speak.
There was an engine of definitely reform in our country at that time. At time, yeah, and music drove that.
Yeah, music was driving that. But when you get past that, it's about the music. And there are lyrics, I think my personal lyrics have been really, it's just what's come out, and they've been very personal, although I didn't know that. And they're very eclectic, and also very spiritual. But they've been sort of, for me, if you say that music of the 60s drove a movement, active movement for reform, for me, it was a personal guide in a way, and I never understood that until recently, that the music really that came through me, or that I caught, so to speak, and put out there, acts more like a vision. They're more like a vision and a guide, and it helps sort of direct me in a certain direction. For example, I'll give you an example. In 1995, I was going through a hard time, and I just looked at a book or something. There was a book of Psalms there, and opened up the Psalms. I had the guitar in my hand, and I was just sort of jamming on the guitar, and some verses jumped up at me, and they became songs. But that was back in 1995. I didn't look at that again until 2004, when something was sort of going, hey, remember me?
Right.
You know, come and look at me again. And I looked at the music again. I pulled it out and I said, wow, this is pretty cool. This is really pretty good stuff. Maybe I should do something with it.
Did I do that? Yeah,
you know, but that was
interesting.
like many years down, almost 10 years, more than that. Yeah, almost 10 years down the road when it had helped me at the time. And then it was tickling me again and saying, you can use me again.
Can your listeners draw from that the same type of emotional or soothing or
Yeah, definitely.
from some of your
Yeah.
some of your songs? I haven't listened to any of your songs yet, so
Uh-oh.
yeah. Confession. Would you
Yeah.
consider yourself also a studio musician? Are you on that
Yes,
caliber?
I have done studio work.
Okay.
Definitely. I've been called in to do guitar work for some people and backup work. And I have a lot of CDs out myself, personally.
I can
but
see
I've-
that. We have, you know, for our listeners, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 different CDs right here. And this one is Need Music. That's the name of this one by Rahel.
Your Child Needs Music. That's music for children. I do children's music, adult
there it is.
music. Yeah.
I just started wearing these. Yeah. Oh, so children's music. Oh, fun.
And that's another one, Mother Goose on the Loose, which is I have collaborated with a friend and who's doing early literacy, where we use music for educational purposes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's really great. She does great things. It's Mother Goose on the Loose. And
We have another one here, Time Passes.
this was my first solo album.
Okay, Time Passes.
And that has mostly songs in English, but also a couple in Hebrew, some of those psalms. And this one is called Tikkun. And this is the one that I was mentioning about the psalms. And I know that people who have heard my music and listened to it, they enjoy it. And they also say, in the sense where I was going to say about the psalms, is that it became, what that led me to was music for healing and transition. Using music rather in service rather than entertainment. And to help people who are ill or even dying. And that music has had a lot of feedback, good feedback from people who have it.
And pronounce that again?
Tikkun.
T-I-K-K, or is that T-I-K-K-U-N?
You've
What does
got
that
it, yeah.
mean?
It means to heal or to repair or to fix. And it's the Psalms, which are really
Any
Psalms are for
particular
everyone.
ones that you
There
draw
are
to?
10 particular ones that are on that CD. And they were sort of, going to my spiritual side,
No,
they were
that's-
revealed by a rabbi named Rabbi Nachman, who was from Breslev in the Ukraine. And he chose or revealed that there were 10 particular psalms that, when they were said as a unit, encompassed all of the sort of Kabbalistic, it's a Kabbalistic thought, it encompassed all of the 150 psalms. And would be used in a way for tikkun, for healing purposes.
Do you have a? Is it Psalm 10, Psalm 23?
Yeah. Now you're testing me. Huh?
No,
It's
I'm not.
Psalm 16, Psalm 32, Psalm, don't quote me, 41 or 42, Psalm 90, Psalm 137, Psalm 150, Psalm 77. I don't remember the whole sequence, but there are 10 particular ones. Might be on here. It's probably written somewhere in there.
I'm glad that we're
yeah.
recording this because I'll never remember that, so I can just go back and remember that. So
Yeah, you can.
Tikkun is healing. On the Mother Goose and the your Child Needs Music, do these teach Hebrew, or are they in English, or are they both?
It's funny because I did teach music to babies and young children for a very long time, and the parents. I made a CD for educational purposes, but the parents bought it, and their kids loved it so much that it became ready for commercial use. And they're in Hebrew, and the other one, the Mother Goose, is in Hebrew and English, and they really are just nursery rhymes, the ones that we already know, Frere Jacques and things like that, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, that we translated into Hebrew because I was living in Israel at the time, and so we adjusted it to the Israeli society, which are Hebrew speakers, and they're just really a collection of nursery rhymes and songs and lullabies.
Did you publish these yourself, or did you have a publisher help you?
All self-done.
Now, is that through CD?
Independent music, indie music.
Indie music, okay.
Yeah.
And did have anything played on the air at all?
Yeah,
Nice. Really?
yeah. a long time ago, I was with an all-women's band in Israel, and we have a lot of CDs out. That was actually with the women's group was the first time I actually put out my own original music, and we made a CD, and we were on TV a lot and radio. But here in America, I brought it to WERS and some others, and a lot of local shows here.
Right.
Have picked it up.
Oh, that's nice.
That's
quite the compliment when you hear. I haven't heard any of my music on the air yet, so.
Well, it's they're local shows. I wouldn't say that it's gone out mainstream, but maybe one day.
Yeah, you never know. That's nice. Well, that's wonderful. Now you brought in a guitar.
I did.
And I looked at that and I thought, oh, that's a guitar. Is this what you normally play, or is this just for the road, or is
this is a guitar for the road? I should credit Martin. It's a Martin guitar, and it's a Martin backpacker guitar. It's for the road. It's really not convenient to take. I've taken it back and forth to Israel, taken it on trains, on planes, and everything. And you can hook it up to an amp and amplify it. Sound-wise, they call it sort of the harpsichord of the guitars. It's got a higher pitch sound because it doesn't have the big bass,
the
full body there. But it plays just like a regular guitar. It's got a regular neck, and you can do everything with it. It's not the guitar I normally use when I go on a performance, but I do take it with me to nursing homes and senior centers. I take it with me when I work with children.
And you do that locally here in Nashua?
Yes, I do, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Where do you, in Nashua, where do you go?
Well, I go to a couple of senior homes, and I've been to quite a few. In Nashua, I was at the Hunt building, the Hunt community.
Right.
But there's some around in Manchester and Derry and in Milford and Amherst and all over the place. Senior homes, which if you're as a performer, I will tell you that seniors are the best audience ever.
Yeah, you're right. I used to sing with a big band years ago. It was up in the Concord area. It was the Freeze Brothers Band. And my grandfather actually has a long history here in Nashua. He and his brothers and sisters used to perform in the Colonial Theater when there was one.
Oh, nice.
10 cents to come hear the Avard kids. But one day I was singing in a big band, and just out of the blue, I didn't know he was in there. They were all seniors at the Anheuser-Busch. And I'm singing, I left my heart in San Francisco, and then he just stands up in the middle of this crowd of white hair. And tears are rolling down his face, and I was like, that's too much, Grandpa. I said, no, I love you. And I went over and hugged him, and it was like, that was really neat. But
it's special. It's special.
They're into it.
They're into it, and they're appreciative.
Yeah.
And they really appreciate that you come out. They appreciate your music. They like to hear your story.
Yeah.
And they just listen very attentively and very focused. And it's a pleasure. It's a different experience as a performer. Most of the time, I have to say that most of the time here in New Hampshire, and I don't mean to say anything bad about New Hampshire, but unless you're playing rock music or, mostly rock music, rock and blues,
right,
then there's not a huge audience. And so a lot of times I'm playing for maybe a handful of people. So, or you're playing as background music.
Right.
In a restaurant or somewhere. Yeah. And it's not often that you get to play to a very large audience. And so even if the seniors are just perhaps 15 or 20 of them, that's a large audience for New Hampshire.
Right.
And an attentive listening audience, which is great. And if you go to open mics, which I'm sure you do, you find that you're playing to colleagues.
I've actually never done an open mic. I've done some local places like Fody's or some restaurants. If I see the people aren't paying attention, I'm just off my game. I am so off. I have to have the feedback. I like to draw from the crowd.
You like to bounce off the audience.
Right. As soon as you see them just having a conversation, totally ignoring you, I feel like a piece of wallpaper.
Yeah.
And I don't let that happen. I'll go out in the crowd and I'll sing to somebody.
Oh, well, you're brave.
Yeah.
I guess I've been sort of dumbed down. I just got used to playing in the background. But except, that's why I like seniors and kids, too.
Yeah.
I really interact well with kids. I love what they have to say, the way they are, and they're so candid.
They are. Not. This is an interview about you, but not me. But yeah. Sometimes when we're at the Capitol, the fourth or fifth graders will come up and I'll sing to them, and they really get into it. It's a song I wrote for them. But the older classes, when they come there, it's like, come on, give me out of here. Right. Who's this old guy?
Right. It's hard to please everybody, right. and we meet. I think I do well with others of my age because I'm really being influenced by the '60s and '70s, and I love, by the way, funky music, Earth, Wind and Fire, stuff like that. But being influenced from that time, I will tell you, I did a gig up in a bar in Manchester. And there were a bunch of players, different players, that night. And one guy got up and he was singing nice. And then I got up and I had a bass player then. We did our set. And afterwards he came up and he said, there I am, standing up there with my hippie clothes and trying to be like a hippie. He said, you're the real thing.
Oh, gosh. Nice.
And I said, I don't know if that was a compliment or not, but I have to say that I actually felt pretty good. That it meant that my music was authentic.
I was just that
and
word.
And it spoke to him.
Right.
And what more could you ask for?
Yeah, you're authentic. Yeah, and that's nice. And I think I can reflect back to the early '60s, and there was a vast amount of music that I loved. The early '70s. I'm trapped in there sometimes. As soon as I hear a song, "Give Me the Beat Boys" or a Ray Charles song, I'm floored.
It was real music then. I mean, they really produced great music, and the fact that they're still playing it today.
Yeah, has lasting power. Yeah, exactly.
It's lasting power. I mean, it was the real thing. It was. Today, I don't know if the '80s and '90s music stuck. I was in Israel during the '80s, late '70s, mid '70s to the late '90s, so I missed a whole chunk of American music because, as I said, I was being influenced by what was going on in Israel. But I don't know if it has lasting power.
Right.
I don't know if you're hearing it.
This is your latest one. It's on rap. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Do you rap at all?
I wish I could.
Is rap music popular in Israel?
It is.
Is it?
And reggae and rap is happening there. Yeah. Israelis are influenced because Israel is sort of the center of the world. It really is. Yeah. And it's influenced by it's very cosmopolitan. And you've got European influence in fashion. The fashion is out of this world, which is also influenced by Middle Eastern fashion and Asian and Indian, the whole bit. And then you've got the Western and Eastern influences coming together, not clashing, but coming together and blending.
So when you see a picture of Israel, it might be different from if you haven't been there. I think of, well, my gosh, Iran, Iraq, their type of totally different.
Totally different.
Totally different type of.
If you go to Israel, you will be shocked to enter into a completely modern society. And what you see, as I said, is not what it is. I've learned. I had a radio show for a while where I was talking about Israel. It was focused on Israel, and I've learned that. It's almost like there's two different planets. There's the political planet, which has its own little world and drama and all sorts of stuff going on. And then there's real life. And in Israel, it's very much like that. There might be a suicide bomber, which is terrible, or there might be something awful, and the Qassam rockets coming in one part of the country, but in the other part of the country, they're skiing. Or they're, and skiing, yes, that does exist in Israel, or they're riding camels down in the desert, and you just don't feel it all the time when you're there. You're just not always aware of it. And if you were to sit there and focus all the time on the politics of the country, I don't think you could survive.
Interesting. Well, we'll take a break, and we'll be right back.
Gali הים ואתה הולך, אתה חושב, מחשבות של היום רוצה לברוח עם שלוותו של הים עד עולם. פגישה שאתה לא שומע כאן בים. של הים ואתה הולך והים עם סודות עלומים לעולם כאן נשאר, כאן נשאר, years to translate this song.
Good job.
I'm singing in Hebrew if you don't know.
Oh yeah.
And that's how the song came to me. And I barely knew Hebrew at the time. And it came complete poem like that.
Wow.
And it did. It took me 20 years to translate it because Hebrew has so many levels of understanding. I'll sing the English version. Migrant gulls speckle the shoreline and you are there. The waves, they come and they go and you are there. The day you want to run away. Are you in that place yet, Sonny? The wind whispers a message that you don't hear. Oh, 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 clouds changing their faces and you depart while the sea gathers her treasures as you turn away. As you turn away.
Well, tell us a little bit about this clip.
That clip was filmed actually by Sadi Khan, who is promoting local and original artists here in New Hampshire, and it was in Manchester at a place called the Jam Factory, and it was a clip, a recording, actually not a recording. The video clip is the first song that I ever actually wrote. It was called "Whisper by the Sea," or in Hebrew, "Lahash al-Hayam." Al-Hayam. There you go.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
We'll get you there.
I can be taught.
Yeah, yeah. And the content of it, well, you heard what it was saying, but it was basically saying that, here was a person coming to the sea, and the sea is a mystical kind of place. And when you go to the sea, you kind of go there hoping that you're going to get a message, or you'll get something from being there, in a spiritual sense, if that was your intent on going, not just to have a beach party or something. Right. And in the song, the person goes there with hopes of getting inspired, but in the end just sort of turns around and misses out. And but it came to me first in Hebrew, and it was the first song that I would say is I wrote 2 songs in the beginning in the early 80s that I would call official original music. And this was the one that came out in Hebrew. And at the time, I really didn't know Hebrew very well. So I was kind of surprised. How did this song come out? I took it to a Hebrew speaker and to say, was this correct Hebrew or whatever. She tweaked it just a little bit, but for the most part, it just came out whole in Hebrew and was a complete song. And I kind of like the song a lot. I keep singing it. It holds a lot of, it comes to me on different levels. And as you know, if you go to the sea, there are different levels, different feelings that you get at the sea. And each time you go back, there's something different. It gives you something different. And this song gives me something different. But for 20 years, I could not for the life of me translate this song. Because Hebrew, the Hebrew language itself, is it's understood on many levels. One word is a concept. It's a conceptual language. So to try and translate the words was very difficult for me. And it took me 20 years. And 20 years later, I came up with a translation, which is what you also heard on the clip. And I think it captured the essence of the song. It wasn't an exact translation, far from it. But it captured the essence of the song.
Tell us a little bit about the process of songwriting. I've done a little myself. I don't know if I've been successful at it, but let me ask you, when is your favorite time to write?
That's a good question. I have to say that for me, a friend of mine sort of coined this term, ESSET, empty space and empty time. Anytime I have a chance of a number of hours where I think when I was younger and wasn't so busy, didn't have children, etc., I had a lot of time. And I would sit just maybe staring at the walls. And the mind would flow and things would happen. And if I had a guitar in my hand, a tune or a melody would come out. Sometimes a song would come out whole, as I said, this one did. Sometimes I would try and sit there and work on it, and it would never work. What is the best time? I think, I have to laugh because I did a little theater work, and one director once said, I get my best ideas on the toilet. and it's true. In the shower, on the toilet, riding in the car, when you're sort of, you have empty time. You have that ESSET, empty space and empty time to allow something to just happen. Yeah. And a Native American, I guess he was a poet, had a poem about, he called it song catching. And I really truly believe that this is how it works, that the songs are out there. Yeah. And if you have that ESSET, that empty space, empty time, then you can catch those songs. And in a sense, they will come through you and you'll put them on paper and you'll make them real and concrete and send them out there to the public. And then, you catch them and send them out. And I really think that that's how it works, the songwriting process, because when I sit down and I really, I'm going to write a song now,
right.
It doesn't work.
Right.
I have, multiple scratches out, and look at the paper and it's full of lines and there's nothing there.
Right.
But if you sit relaxed, it's almost like a meditation. It comes out and there it is.
Do you do it simultaneously? Do you do your words first, or do you do them with the music, or do you do just the music? I think Carole King said something to the effect that she does it at the same time. But men tend to do one thing and then work on the other.
I can't say there's a pattern. I think that a lot of times if I just have the guitar in my hand, then I'll play some chords and a melody will come. And the main thing is to have a tape recorder there.
Yeah.
Just to catch it. Just put down whatever comes out. My good friend Victor had tons and tons of tapes that were just experiments, he called it. Little snippets of things that came through.
Right.
Some of them come out, and then you could go back and you can work on it.
Oh, I can't recall how many times oh man, that sounds really good, and then
you lose it.
What did I do?
Right.
Oh, where did that go? It's awful. It's a horrible feeling because you know you were having an experience at that time.
And it grabs you. I remember driving in the car once, and as I was going, the lines were coming out, and I was like trying to drive, but I grabbed a piece of paper, have a paper and pen available,
right.
and write them down as they're coming. I'm like driving, writing down this thing as it's going through me.
Yeah.
And I know I read there's a great book called Musicians in Tune, I think it is, or Time, Musicians in Tune. It was written by, she was the sister of George Harrison's girlfriend, Patty Boyd, so her sister was, I can't remember, but it was written by her. And she was studying the psychology of musicians and how they write songs. And she said, a lot of them they'd be sleeping, and in their dreams, they would get the song. And so you'd have to have either a tape recorder or something, a pad of paper next to you, so that when you wake up out of your sleep, you write it down, you get it, so you don't lose it.
Right.
And
that's funny. We recently had a guest on, Mr. John Prestige, and he wrote a number of books called REM.
Oh.
And based on either before or when he wakes up. I tend to like when I wake up. If I've had a really good night's sleep, I'm refreshed and I've got that time alone. I'll do a little bit of reading, then I'll go down and I'll play my guitar, and it hits you. It's like, oh, I've been doing this for years, and this all of a sudden just comes, it snaps right out at you, and it takes a new life.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
My favorite time really is after midnight.
After midnight.
I'm a night bird, so between midnight and 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, that's when it comes to me.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, everybody does, approaches it in a different way.
Yeah.
If people want to they can just get your material online, your songs.
All my material is online. I have a number of websites. I would say that I have 2 personas. One is as Rahel.
As Rahel?
So Rahel is my one persona. And so you can find it at rahelmusic.net. That's RAHEL music.net. And I have another persona sort of focusing more on my folk music side, which is Vintage Gold Muse. So it's vintagegoldmuse.com. And then that'll bring you all to a whole bunch of other places. But all the music is online. It's also at CD Baby.
Okay. Yeah. I'm familiar with CD
the internet store.
Right. Are you
the original internet store?
Are you connected with a lot of local musicians as well?
I am. I have played with a number of musicians and done a lot of open mics and a lot of the folk clubs around.
So,
and
rumor has it that you might be having your own show here.
Rumor has it, yes. I'm working on producing the show here, which I'm excited about it. As I said, I had a radio show, which was one thing, but television is a whole other way of communicating, which looks, I don't know, I'm a little scared. It seems like a hard work, but...
It seems so. I'm enjoying it. You get to really meet some very interesting people, and this is a very nice outlet, especially if you want to get your music out there. And
well, this will be sort of like your show, kind of a magazine. I'm going to be interviewing some what I would call people living on the fringe.
Okay.
Local unsung heroes, people that are doing amazing things that we just don't know about, who haven't yet been focused on. Well, for example, there's a woman who's raising alpacas. I think I bumped into her in a job that I was doing, and it's fascinating to learn about what she's doing with alpacas. Or, for example, there's a local studio. He's a music studio, and I'd like to interview him. Just people who are doing things that you wouldn't really take note of.
Right.
And I want to bring a focus that we're all heroes. We're all pieces of the puzzle here. We're all little sparks, and each one of us is important. And even if we're not celebrities,
right.
we're celebrities in our own little family, in our own community, and in our own state. And those are the people I want to focus on, the ones that we don't know about.
I think that's the common thread that you and I may have as well, is this whole idea of community. It seems lately, whether it's the internet or whatever reasons people are so busy, that everybody's cocooning in their own little worlds. And the richness of our community here in New Hampshire, and focusing just in Nashua, it's amazing what you find if you just look. One of my first guests, we had a pastor. Then my next guest was a neighbor who he's a writer.
Yeah.
He's 78 years old, and he writes interesting poems and sonnets and
right.
And he's a photographer, and he was a world salesman, and he's this and I think, wow, there's a history book right in front of me.
Right.
We can have a conversation for an hour, and it'll go over just like that.
And each one is a story, and each one is a hero. Each person brings with them something amazing.
Right.
And we need to start looking at it. We overlook it a lot.
Right. And so the name of your show is going to be?
Well, I think it's going to be Living on the Fringe.
Living on the Fringe.
Yeah, and about local heroes.
Local heroes. Very interesting. Well, I want to really thank you for coming on the show. This has been very interesting, and I promise I'm going to be going online to listen to more of your music.
Good, and I hope you have a website too that I can listen to. So.
Oh, I have a couple songs, yeah, but I'm on YouTube. I've written a couple of songs, so I'm still broke.
Yeah, that was the other aspect. Oh, can I just say?
Certainly.
Musicians work hard. We studied, we went to school. We're like lawyers, we're like doctors. And I just want to make a plug out there that we need to be paid for our work. Even if it's just $25, $50, we're working. Right. We're working. And we put in the effort, we put in the time. It takes a lot of work to be a musician.
So when you pirate something off of the internet or something, you basically...
Or if you're asking, I want to just put a little word out there for people. We love to perform for you, but we can't do it for free.
Right.
We love to volunteer, but we can only put out a certain amount of volunteer hours per year. And when you ask us to do these things for free, it breaks our heart to say no. But we got to pay the bills like everybody else. And I would just make a few suggestions for those of you who can't afford to pay us. Get sponsorship.
There you go.
Get sponsorship. There are local businesses who would love to have me advertise their business, and I'll be happy to wear a sign or a hat on my head that says, so-and-so sponsored the musical part of this show.
That's a very interesting idea. That's a very interesting idea. I think I totally agree with you that I know some very, very talented musicians that went to Berkeley. They just totally amaze you what they can do.
Right.
And the amount of hours that they put in, and you think, well, you should be a star or you should be a millionaire for what you've done. But it seems to just be taken for granted. And I've also noticed one other thing about music, that if you have a child that is struggling through school, music might be an alternative way to draw them in and help them use both sides of their brain.
Yeah, it's a well-known, when I taught music to babies and young children, it's a holistic thing. The music will inspire and get both sides of the brain working in harmony. In harmony. And they said, you'll get smarter babies. It's not that you'll get smarter babies. You'll get a more efficient use of the brain.
Right, because at some point or other, it will affect your mind, but it's like learning a new language. It's learning a new skill. It's strengthening the mind. It's allowing an expression Sometimes when kids are going through depression, or when people go through depression, it's amazing how therapeutic it is if you pick up a guitar or go to the piano, or I play saxophone, and you just go into a room and you just get it out.
Yeah.
You know?
I do therapeutic music and to all ages, and it's amazing the power of music.
Yeah.
There's a very good book by David Tame. He's British. It's called The Secret Power of Music. If you get a chance to read it, it's wonderful. You would not believe how effective and how influential music is on everything we are and who we are and how we function. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I've got to close the show, but I want to thank you very much, because there's the music, as you can hear.
Music, yes.
So thank you again for coming on Gate City Chronicles, and we want to thank our sponsors, Aardvark Dean of Clean and Nashua Steam Cleaning. Thank you for sponsoring the show, and we welcome you to, if you want to sponsor the show, give a call. So again, we'll see you next week at Gate City Chronicle. Have a good day.